My father left our family for his mistress, but I made him regret it in the cruelest way. Introduction. When you're a child, you believe your parents will always be there for you, that they are your protection, your foundation. You never think that one day one of them might just leave, as if your entire life was just a temporary stop for them. My father was exactly that kind of man. When he walked out, he said he just wanted to be happy, that he was tired of all the family problems. But the truth was, he had already started a new life, one where there was no place for me or my mother. At first, I didn't know what to do. I was lost. But one thing was clear. If he made his choice, I would make mine. He abandoned us, and in the end, he was left with nothing. I never begged for revenge. I simply became more successful than he had ever dreamed of. And when he finally realized his mistake, it was far too late. Part 1, A Broken Home. I was 17 when it happened. It came out of nowhere, or maybe I just never saw the signs. He started coming home later and later. My mom and I would eat dinner alone, though she always left a plate for him on the table. Sometimes, late at night, I could hear my mom quietly talking to him in their bedroom. Her voice was pleading, his was cold. And then, one evening, everything changed. I came home from school and felt something was wrong. The apartment was eerily silent, except for the faint sound of boiling tea from the kitchen. My mom sat at the table, her eyes were empty. "Mom," she didn't even look at me. "He's leaving," she whispered. "Leaving? Where?" "Us. He's leaving us." I couldn't understand what she was saying. It had to be some kind of mistake. I had seen him that morning. He had just gone to work, right? And then the front door opened. He walked in with a suitcase. I waited for him to say something, to show regret, to explain. But he just looked at me like I was a stranger. "Are you serious?" I asked. "It's complicated, son. You'll understand when you're older." Understand? What was there to understand? I saw my mother clutch his hand, but he gently pulled away. "I need to do this." And just like that, he left. My mother broke down in tears, and I just stood there, staring at the door that had closed behind him, realizing we were on our own. Part 2, Pain and Rage. The first few weeks were hell. My mother tried to stay strong. She told me everything would be okay. But I saw her sitting by the window for hours, waiting for him to come back. He never did. I wanted to call him, to scream into the phone, "You left us. Do you even care?" But I knew he wouldn't answer. Then it got worse. Because I found out the truth. He hadn't just left. He had someone else. How long had he been lying to us? How many times had he kissed my mother goodbye, only to drive straight to another woman? The thought burned inside me. But at some point I realized I wouldn't waste my energy suffering. I would make him regret everything. Part 3, A New Path. I made a promise to myself. I would become successful. I stopped complaining, stopped expecting help. I worked late hours, studied during the day. I refused to be weak because I knew one day when I had everything, he would see exactly what he had thrown away. 6 years passed. I graduated, built my own business. While my father enjoyed his freedom with his new wife, I kept climbing higher and higher. And then, when I was 23, I learned that his new life had collapsed. His wife had left him, found someone younger, richer. He had lost everything. And me, I was only getting started. Then my phone rang. "Son, how are you? Let's meet up." I had been waiting for this moment. Part 4, The Final Meeting. I chose an expensive restaurant. I arrived in a perfectly tailored suit, sat at the table, and waited. When my father walked in, I saw it immediately. He was no longer the confident man I once knew. He looked older, exhausted, but most of all, he looked lost. "You look good," he said with a forced smile. "Thanks, you don't." He looked away. "I've made mistakes. I want to fix things." "Fix things?" I smirked. "How do you fix 6 years? How do you fix abandoning your family? How do you fix my mother's pain?" He lowered his head. I, I thought I'd be happy, but I lost everything. I stared at him for a long moment before speaking. No, you lost us. And that was the most valuable thing you had. I could see it in his eyes. He expected me to forgive him. But I simply stood up. I'm not your son anymore. You made your choice. Now live with it. And I walked away, leaving him alone, just like he had left us. Conclusion. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness, only satisfaction, because I was no longer a victim. Life isn't a rough draft. You don't always get a second chance. If you betray the people who love you, be prepared for the day when they close the door on you. I left that restaurant.